Hi, I'm Ivan Gazidis with Kilmer Sports Ventures. I've just spoken to leaders in London about the multi-club sports model, and I hope you enjoy the chat.
Welcome everyone to this session. It's another session about investing in sport, but with a twist, because Kilmer Sports Ventures are obviously an investor, but they're also a really experienced operator. So we're going to dig into the operating model as much as the investment side in this particular session. We've got about 30 minutes to do that. And I thought I would start with you, Ivan, if I may. Ivan and myself go back a long way, and I do remember Ivan when he was at the MLS. And so he's got a huge amount of experience. Background after the MLS, he went to Arsenal as CEO and then went to AC Milan as CEO. And he's had a brilliant track record, so there's no one better to talk about an operating model. But I do want to start, if I may, Ivan, with your investment strategy and how Kilmer started. Where did it all begin?
So Kilmer is an invention of a guy called Larry Tanenbaum. And Larry is based in Toronto. He's a part owner of MLSE, which owns the sports teams in Toronto, the Raptors, the Maple Leafs, and Toronto FC, as well as the Argonauts. And he's also very prominent owner on the boards of the various leagues, including being the chairman of the board of governors of the NBA. So very well known, very well respected in the world of sports. And Larry was looking to do some interesting things, perhaps outside of the MLSE sandbox. And he approached me. I'd left Milan. He approached me and asked whether that was something I wanted to be involved with him. And he's a wonderful guy. He's a very, very special guy, somebody we're all proud and honored to be able to work with and interact with day by day. So I felt like it was an opportunity I couldn't turn away from, to work with somebody like that. And we're doing some really interesting things across the world of sports, and we're going to do some more.
What type of investor are you? We've got private equity, we've got private offices, we've got sovereign wealth, we've got a mixture, we've loads of different ways in which you can invest now in sport. So what's Kilmer?
Well, maybe I could say what we're not. We're not a fund. This is a private company that is not beholden to any stakeholders. It means that we don't have particular timelines that we're working to. It's very long term. Larry's never sold any of his sports investments, and so we're able to think in that way on that time frame. Larry himself is tremendously experienced in sports, and so what we're looking for are opportunities where we can invest that make sense as investments, but are critically situations in which our operational expertise will be able to add value. And that's a really key part. It means we're only looking really for investments where we have a controlling interest. And it's not just sports, by the way, it's also entertainment. So it's a very broad range of opportunities that we're looking at. These are the first two investments we've made. But there will be more, and we're actively looking at other opportunities at the moment. But we have quite a lot on our hands just with these two. And Huss and Teresa will talk a little bit about that, I'm sure.
And before we just delve into the WNBA team and Saint-Étienne, I did want to just ask one further question, and that is, you've got two sports franchises, you'll probably add more. Is it, in your mind, a multi-sport or multi-club type investment? And if it's not, what is multi-sport in your mind, and what isn't?
I don't know exactly how those terms are universally used. I think they're used in different contexts. We don't think of ourselves as a multi-sport, multi-club organization. We look at individual opportunities where we think we can add value, put the right people in place to help us drive those ideas forward and use our operating expertise to deliver individual value to those investments. So Saint-Étienne is very, very different from the WNBA startup in Toronto. They require completely different solutions. There may be opportunities, certainly, for us to work together, but we don't have some strategic, one-size-fits-all solution that we believe in. We believe there are completely different solutions according to individual circumstances. Saint-Étienne is 100 years old. WNBA is a startup. There's completely different markets, different sports. But having said that, we communicate and we listen to each other's ideas and what we're doing, but we're not trying to impose solutions from one onto another. Teresa said it very well, and I won't be able to say it as well as she did. We won't compromise. What did you say, Teresa?
I don't even know.
She had a great phrase for it, which.
We won't compromise for efficiency. Is that what I was talking about? Yeah.
So we'll get the best answers for each of those individual investments without compromising across the investments to have one solution that fits all.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Let's turn to you, Teresa, next, because you are running what is effectively a blank sheet of paper that cost about $100 million at the moment. So you're starting from scratch. Just tell us why, first and foremost, why did you put that amount of money into something which is literally, it's nothing there yet. You're creating it.
Making something out of nothing.
Absolutely.
Right? It's a fun exercise, but it was really a no-brainer. So I grew up in the States. I grew up in Minnesota, and I worked at the NBA League office before moving to Toronto in 2013. So I spent 11 seasons, 10 years in the front office on the sporting side of the Toronto Raptors. And women's sports through that time, at the time I was one of the only women on the technical side, and I saw it change even while I was there. And what I also saw was the Raptors, by winning specifically, we're able to galvanize not just Toronto, but this entire country. And it was unique in sport, specifically North American sport, to have an entire country rooting for you versus your 75-mile radius. So with all those things kind of coming to an inflection point, Larry saw that as the very astute investor that he is, and he asked me to come and be part of it. And similar to Ivan, when an opportunity like that with an incredible businessman and just human, you don't say no. So Toronto is fourth largest market in North America. We're able to launch this team as Canada's team. We have commercial rights across the country, which has never been done before. And it's truly incredible the trajectory that the W's on right now. So all those things combined, we have lightning in a bottle, and I'm really excited to be at the helm of it.
I mean, you haven't even got a name yet, and you're going to be...
We're starting from scratch. We don't have a name. We're working through it, though. That's been a really exciting process. Honestly, to dive into that a little bit, we knew it was really important that all of Canada got to be part of this. We're named, it's going to be Toronto something, just because if we do our job right, there'll be another team in Canada someday. Yeah. So we do own the name Toronto, but we're truly launching as Canada's team, and we needed to make sure people felt that way. So the naming process, we tried to run the most transparent process that's ever been done. So we had a nameyourteam.ca website. You could text in ideas. But then more importantly, we have a podcast and a blog that's taking the fans through every single step. So our last episode was the cutting room floor. So we actually talked about a ton of names that didn't make the cut and why. People don't hear that. People don't share that. And it's just a way that we hope people will really feel part of this team, like you said, before you even actually have a name.
And I know you haven't got a name, but do you know what you stand for yet?
All of Canada.
Say again?
All of Canada. We stand for all of Canada.
All of Canada, cool. And I'm assuming diversity, inclusion also is a very important part of your brand, because Toronto, women's basketball, it must be a key part of what you're thinking in terms of driving people through the door when you first tip off.
Yeah, absolutely. So Toronto is one of the most diverse cities in the world. We see it as truly a gateway to the global market. So almost 50%, or well, I'm not gonna say that stat because I don't know it, but there's a lot of new Canadians that are still connected to wherever in the world they came from, which means their favorite team is gonna be WNBA Toronto, which means all their family that is in wherever they came from is also gonna be fans of our team. So it's a huge opportunity, and the WNBA in and itself is basically a social statement, right?
Yeah.
So it's women competing at an elite level in public. 80% are racialized women. It's a statement in and of itself that we exist. So we're leaning into that. We're not going to have a head of a chief diversity and inclusion officer, because every single person that works for our organization is going to have that mandate. Because if we don't make decisions with that lens, then we're not serving our fandom.
And then along came a 100-year-old brand in Saint-Étienne, which is your pet project, Huss. So tell me how that came about and why you chose it, why you chose the French market, why you chose football. What's the rationale?
So we were probably looking for about two and a half years, 60, 70, 80 clubs in different countries. What we wanted for this specific investment was almost something we could activate. So there was very few clubs that had inside its DNA the capacity to compete at the very top in a country that could support a mature football club, in a club that had infrastructure, fan base, academy, all the ingredients that if you activate the club well, it could naturally compete at the top. We didn't have to create. And so after two and a half years, we slowly settled on Saint-Étienne and got the club, and now the kind of hard work starts with building our strategy out, because we're very conscious that we had a really clear strategy, a really clear implementation plan. But when you get into a club, you naturally have to adapt it and make it super focused, super practical. And so we're in that phase right now of figuring out the delta between our original idea, which will always remain, but how we tweak it and adjust it to make sure it comes to life literally day to day.
And do you have an investment horizon? I mean, I know that originally, Ivan, you said, we're going to take our time, we're going to move slowly, methodically. Now you're in the club. How long do you think it will take before you get to a position whereby actually you do have a choice to sell it if you want to sell it, or keep it if you want to keep it? I know you're working through the weeds of it at the moment, and by working through the weeds, I'm assuming you will improve the value of the business. What's your time horizon?
We don't have one, honestly. We've got phases internally, which has got nothing to do with necessarily a sale. It's just due to the development of the club, and there's 5 or 6 phases that we probably have at a very big macro level, and we're going to work our way through them. Every single phase will offer us an opportunity to look at the market. We'll always be open-minded, but I don't think we're working towards an exit. We're working towards implementing our plan and seeing how far we can push the club. And sport will throw challenges us out, will throw us off course. Big things will happen around us, which means we'll have to adjust. So I don't think we're naive enough to say we're going to do this in this timeline and exit at this point. We're just going to develop the club phase by phase and see where that takes us. But it's a long-term plan, and we're doing everything with that horizon. Everything is done for a legitimate impact rather than a quick cosmetic feel.
You obviously sound very methodical in the way that you think about these businesses. But when you bought Saint-Étienne, literally, I don't know how many months was it afterwards? I mean, I got a text from one day afterwards, after you closed, because I got a text from you, because we were at lunch and you said, look, we've got this big game coming up, and actually we're either going to be in the lower league or the upper league if it comes off. And then you texted me the sort of, the crowd cheering, etc. So did that accelerate your plan because you got promoted? Did that move you? Did you think, actually, we'll throw the business plan out because now we've really got to get moving on this?
I don't think we'd throw the business plan out, but I think it certainly, what it does is everything that wraps around the football club becomes more high profile, more complex. In League Two, you've just got different challenges around you. I think our plan, the phases that we've got to the plan don't really adjust, but everything around us changed, and so we needed to respect that, and that made some elements of our project had to be accelerated, some of the elements of the project had to be slowed down. So it definitely had an impact. I think time will tell whether that is positive or negative, but you always want promotion, right? So it was a great thing for the club, it was a great thing for the city. And we're very aware, whether you're at Saint-Étienne or trying to build something at the W, if you're not super detailed and practical and flexible, it just won't work. Yeah. And so I think promotion happened last season. There's going to be things that happen game by game, match by match this season, season by season. Same with the W.
Yeah.
I think our plan is very flexible but focused.
Yeah, and I noticed that, obviously the French league is challenging from a media rights point of view, and I would imagine that going into it you were aware of the situation. Do you think that is a product of the process, and the long-term view for you is actually that will correct itself at some point in the future? We just need to be doing what we do, and that sort of at a macro level will sort of sort itself out. Is that how you think it will play out?
I definitely think process played a massive part, and it's not necessarily a byproduct of value. I think we were aware of everything that was going on, but you never know until you're inside the weeds of what's going on. I don't think our project is dependent on media rights, certainly in the short term. So we have a specific idea behind Saint-Étienne, and certainly in the short term, it doesn't change as a result of the broadcast rights. But I think there's loads going on in sport generally, and sometimes you need a big moment to shake things up, and I think loads of sports are going to be going through different things. We definitely don't judge what is happening today or yesterday as the determining factor of whether we're going to be successful or not. Like sport ebbs and flows too much, and I think France is a very sophisticated country. Football is at the heartbeat of that country. Players are extraordinary, stadiums are good, fan base is strong. So the fundamentals are there, and it's our job alongside the other presidents and ownership groups to activate it. But that's the same for everybody in here in their respective sports. So it's not the best moment in that regard, but it doesn't worry us for the long term.
Yeah, and Teresa, if I could just turn to you, because obviously you are starting from scratch and you've got a limited amount of time, so you've got a lot to do in a short space of time. You're effectively a startup, and doors will open in a couple of years' time. So are you thinking, because you've got license to do this, are you thinking differently about the way you grow this brand, you build this brand, and you start this business? I mean, tell me a little bit more about the way you're thinking and how you're doing it differently. Because I would imagine from Huss's position, he'd be like, you know what, that's pretty good. That's a great place to be in. But then you're probably looking at Huss thinking, well, actually, he's got 100 years behind him. So
yeah, the grass is always greener, right? So I'm sure Huss would love some of my blank slate, and I would love some of his foundational business things that already exist to lean on. But you always want what you can't have. So we're taking this opportunity to do things differently. But I think the one thing where Kilmer Sports Ventures is like we're sitting here today. Like I know Huss is someone I can lean on, Ivan is someone I can lean on, is when we do want to do things that seem different in the W, but maybe have been done for years in French football or even your time in Italy and UK, like we can lean on each other for that insight. I'm going down the path of hiring a team leader, a general manager. Like, yeah, we want to think a little bit differently, but these guys have done it before. So there's certain things that translate across gender, sport, market, and making sure we're picking brains on that. But absolutely, we want to do things differently. And we want to take all the things that we've learned to this point, whether it's within the Kilmer Sports Ventures family or within our networks, and apply it and push the envelope. Like, our whole mandate is to elevate the entire W. If we're not doing that, then why are we here, right? Like, we need to elevate the entire league by looking for ways to improve, for efficiencies, to bring dollars, revenue, fandom, become a lexicon of culture, like all these things. So, I mean, I think our name and logo is a great example of that. Like, nobody's done it but like that before. And nobody's had an entire country from the very beginning. We're going to play regular season games in different marketplaces. Honestly, I don't even know what's next in some cases. All I know is that we're going to continue to push the envelope, and it's great to have support from these guys, from the league, and from an incredible owner.
Just one more question, actually, because I know Larry's I think is a 25% shareholder in Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. Do you look at that business and think, actually, I really can lean into that business and learn from them?
Yeah, I mean, MLSC, those people were my colleagues for 11 years. You know, I learned a ton while there. I mean, there's some people in the audience right now. We're in the same marketplace. They're literally partners of ours in the fact that we're playing in their buildings. So 100% we'll lean on them. We learn a lot from them, and hopefully they can learn from us too. Like, I think competition is great because it makes everybody better. So I hope to also provide some competition for my former colleagues at MLSE.
Good. And Ivan, we've only got about 5 minutes left on this session, but I want to sort of go back to the beginning about the model and investing and where you invest and why you invest. And I just want to dig into that a little bit more, if I may, because I would imagine you've got other properties that you're looking at, obviously not in a rush. You know, talk me through some of the thinking around that, because I would be sitting here thinking, well, actually, if you're not in a rush, you're going to miss out on opportunities. And you might be thinking, well, looking at me, thinking, well, if we're not in a rush, we're going to make the right decisions. So, you know, what will it look like in 5 years' time, Kilmer Sports Ventures?
So it's interesting because we do have, you know, Huss is talking a lot about our long-term thinking, and then the question goes to Teresa, well, you know, you have to start a team in a very defined short space of time. Don't be deceived. I mean, the long-term thinking does not mean a lack of urgency. In sports business, on the court, on the field, if you don't have real urgency, you're going to be left behind. So we have a very strong sense of urgency in everything we do. That's not inconsistent with thinking long-term. And that also applies on the investing side. You know, we want to be there for the right opportunities where we feel we can add value. But you know, we're not going to move just because we want. There's one of the things about Larry, which I think is really important, is it's not about ego for him. Genuinely isn't about ego. He's very low profile. He believes in sports as a way of connecting communities and connecting families. And I know that sounds a little bit, perhaps, you know, pie in the sky and not real, but it is real with him. He's a special guy. So we're looking for that community feel. That's what we found with Saint-Étienne. That's a very strong community club with an incredible feeling right across France. They won more championships than any other club except for PSG now, and are loved across France because they really were France's team. That's the same kind of sense of community that we identify that we can build with the WNBA team, and Teresa is charged with that, and we're spending a lot of time, her team is spending a lot of time thinking about how we're going to create something really special with that community feeling. So when we look at investments, it's a little, listen, I worked for a hedge fund effectively at Milan with Elliott Management. We did a turnaround project with Milan and then sold the club on to Redbird Capital. The way we are, because we're not in that transactional mode, we really believe in this concept that if you can get the relationships right, if you can get the values right, we just touched on that, the environment right, the value will follow. So I look at something like Angel City. everything Angel City, this is the women's soccer team in LA, everything Angel City have done has been values-led, and value has, the financial value of that has followed. But it was not, they did not go out setting out, you know, how we're going to define this business by way of spreadsheets. They defined what they were doing by the emotional connection they wanted to create. And that's what we want to do in Toronto, and that's what we want to do in Saint-Étienne. If we get that right, the rest will follow. And those are the types of opportunities we're looking for. The types of opportunities where there's going to be a very special emotional connection that we feel we can tap into and add value to and bring to life.
And I'm guessing that all stems from Larry, really, as an owner. You just wouldn't get that in any kind of other scenario, which is incredible because I think he's 78, isn't he? So he's thinking long term
I have
at that
to tell
age.
you,
So
that guy is one of the most incredible people on earth. I mean, Teresa will send him a 30-page document and we'll have a meeting on it and he's read every page of that. Now, by the way, sports is not his main business.
No.
You know, that's not his day job. So I have no idea where he gets this kind of energy from. It's really remarkable.
One final question, because I'm really intrigued. I know you've got an amazing track record in, and it's probably the reason why you know Larry singled you out to do this. But what in your mind is the best model for running a club, whether it be football club or sports franchise, whatever? Is it? Because it's quite a complex world now, and it's quite a complex, you know, set of stakeholders, etc. In your mind, could you put it into a sort of?
I'm still learning and still trying to work it out, and you learn with each experience. I think one of the interesting things to me is as the business becomes bigger and the amount of money goes up, the level of complexity can go up dramatically. You know, you can now afford to have experts in all of these different areas coming in and contributing. They have their own ideas, and how you manage all of that becomes more complex. And I think one of the things I was very focused on at Milan in particular was trying to keep simplicity at the heart of that. You know, Milan is a massive global brand. It's a huge club. There's a saying in Italy, la maglia è pesante, which means the shirt is heavy. And you can allow yourself to get distracted by that. You can allow yourself to feel that weight, and it will inhibit you. What you have to get to, I think I've learned this through some painful experiences, you have to get to the simplicity at the heart of the sport. You know, if you can get the human relationships at the heart, if you can get the right culture right in the center of all of that, all of the other things begin to fall into place like dominoes.
Yeah, wise words. I think we've run out of time, so we'd like to wrap it up there. But I'd like to thank the three panelists for giving their view on Kilmer Sports Ventures. But I also would like to say to you guys, look, if you're looking for investment in the sports and entertainment space, you know, think very carefully what you want, because the type of investor, from what I've learned today, will depend how that business is run. So, you know, do your due diligence as much as the guys who are buying you doing theirs. So thank you very much for the panel. Thank you.